Are you ready?
Good news, everyone! I'm the surprise in your cereal box. I'm
great! Everybody else sucks!
I said, are you ready?
Yes, sir, random kid I just met.
It's Ciely.
Hooray! People are paying attention to me.
That's right. You're always blaming me. So, my reputation exceeds me.
It's time to check the link.
Oh, wait, you serious? Let me laugh even harder.
You know what? You just made the list!
It's all in football.
Sure, we talk about it all the time.
Really?
No, burn.
What is up, you ducks? It is All in Football on FTN with my friend Chris Meaney coming to the States. Are you going to go skydiving with me? We're going to talk about that. It's All in Football. Don't I saw the hesitation in your eyes. You're doing it.
Yeah.
Make it happen.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that. But we are going to talk about NFL awards for fun today, just because why not? But mostly about the conference picks, some thoughts on if you're doing one and dones, anything like that, and continue or hopefully finish our look back on what went right so we can start what went wrong so everybody can yell at us what went wrong. But as you said before we came on the show, Chris, I was shocked at this. You're talking about the Rookie of the Year, that Olave got eliminated from the list, and I was like, wait, what? And then you told me the three, and I'm like, Kenneth Walker, okay, sure. And then you said Garrett Wilson. I was like, okay, sure. And then you said Brock Purdy, and I said, what? And your response?
My response is that it's Rookie of the Year, not Rookie of the Month. Like, Purdy's had a nice little run down the stretch, but the guy's played 6 games. And I understand it's a quarterback world. Like, it is. Like, it's always a quarterback. The quarterbacks get paid the most. But he's played 6 games. Like, Breece Hall played 6 games too and played phenomenally in a majority of those 6 games. I think
you took an argument out of my
mouth.
Go ahead.
Chris Olave had a fantastic season as well. I feel like he's snubbed. I understand Walker and Garrett Wilson. I mean, I think Garrett Wilson's going to win it. 1,000 yards with 3 very mediocre quarterbacks is pretty impressive. But I don't know, man. I'm pretty shocked to see Purdy. Like, and I tweeted that exactly.
To be true, Garrett Wilson basically did all of his work with 2 quarterbacks. Let's just be clear,
yeah. Zach
if you account that, you gotta
Zach didn't throw him the ball.
And that's where I was going to go for my argument. But like we were talking about the Coach of the Year, and I tweeted this out to you, Chris. Is like when we give out Coach and Player of the Year. I talk about this in fantasy too. Like everybody's like, who's your MVP for 2022? It's like, well, you can kind of look at MVP any given way. Like, is MVP truly MVP, like Christian McCaffrey, like, or even Justin Jefferson or something, like, or is it MVP for the discount you got alongside of it? Is it, those kind of things? Our former coworker, Scott Engel, used to always say in real life, MVP cannot be on a team that's not in the playoffs, which we had heated arguments against. But his biggest thing was, like, if you're not a playoff team, you're not an MVP because your team's not even in the playoffs. And you can look at all the different ways. So, like, I think there should be awards of, like, Coach of the Year, but then, like, also, like, Coach of the Year with the biggest duck pile of poo you did, like Brian Dable. Like, those kind of things. So it's interesting. I was genuinely shocked when you told me that Brock Purdy made the Rookie of the Year finalist.
Yeah, MVP finalists, there's 5, Mahomes, Hurts, Jefferson, Allen, and Burrow. But then there's also...
Jefferson's not going to get it.
No.
Like you said, quarterback league. And plus, Jefferson's last 2 games were just... Like, that's just... It's going to leave a bad taste.
And then there's like an AP Offensive Player of the Year finalist, which is a little bit different, but we do have 2 wide receivers on there as well. It's Jefferson and Tyreek, and then Mahomes and Hurts. So interesting. Yeah, Daboll's up for Coach of the Year. He should be. There was 5
Shanahan
names,
and Doug Peterson. I would give it to Peterson.
And you'd give Daboll the Poop Award, right? With what he's done.
Because Doug Peterson, you could even say is like the Poop Award, but honestly, there's a lot of talent there, and he had Trevor Lawrence. He just turned the poop left over from Urban Meyer and then said, like, oh, look, this is how bad. Like, when we were having a discussion yesterday, how bad a coaching change can make for the player to go sideways. He fixed everything that went wrong. I love what Dable was able to do. You could, I mean, honestly, Dable or Peterson, I think, but I
don't think you can go wrong with either one.
Shanahan's not bad either, but it's kind of like he was doing great with a lot of the talent he had, and then he got like that extra bonus because of the Purdy thing.
Yeah, I mean, Peterson, McDermott, Sirianni, Shanahan, Dable, and then all of a sudden they narrow it down to 3.
Yeah, what's wrong with Sirianni?
AP. I guess like
because
the
his
whole
team's
thing
too
was,
good.
I suppose like that's that's what I'm seeing from everybody on social media, and I get it. Like, I mean, I'm sure Howie Roseman's going to get executive of the year because some of the moves that he made, like some of the trades that he made, phenomenal. And the team is loaded offensively and defensively, so I get it. But last year, I mean, you bring up a really good point with Doug Peterson. And I think most people are just like Daboll, and I think both whoever wins it. And I do believe it probably will be Daboll. But, man, like you're right about the Jags. And we talked about the Jags in the offseason and the improvements as well, not just offensively, the guys that they brought in. But this was a team last year that was the worst offensive team in football. They were a mess. People were actually talking about Trevor Lawrence being a bust after one season with Urban Meyer. And they scored over 400 points. They won the division. They won. I know playoffs don't matter, but they won a playoff game. So it's Peterson definitely deserves some consideration.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think that's a tough one. I would give it to one of them over Shanahan. But comeback player of the year is also interesting. Like, forget Geno. Like, Geno's like, I think Geno deserves to be in the conversation. But how do you pick between McCaffrey and Barkley? Like, that's just,
I don't know.
Talking about two of the three best running backs in the league.
I'd give it to Saquon, I think.
I was thinking, and this is coming from the Giants and Barkley and my dog, and like I think I'd actually give it to McCaffrey, like just because his season was a little bit better. Although people argue, well, I mean, he was doing it before he got to the 49ers. But anyway,
exactly.
That's not what we're here for. We're here to talk down. Stupid conference finals. Who cares about them, idiots? Making playoff wins and stuff. Let's talk about San Francisco. Let's continue the talk. San Francisco, Philly is the first game on the slate. Is there any chance? Here, like last week, I said, how does Daniel Jones and the Giants win this game? And you tried to argue for it, and I said it wasn't happening in any world or whatever. So I think the question here is, I think there's a better case for this. I think there's a legitimate case if you want to make it, but I think we're all taking the Eagles. Correct me if I'm wrong. So how do the 49ers win this game in your mind, Chris?
They win the game from their defense and from running the football. There's a couple games that come to mind where the Eagles lost. There was a game against Washington where they turned the ball over a couple times and Washington ran the ball. And they extended drives, long drives, and they kept the Eagles off the field. And when I watch the 49ers, honestly, and when I watch Shanahan, even over the course of his career, I find he plays a little conservative. Sometimes it's worked. Other times it hasn't. You know, you have the Super Bowl with the Falcons. You have the Super Bowl a few years ago with the 49ers. I thought he played really conservative in both of those fourth quarters, even more so when he was with the 49ers. I know we all look at the Atlanta Falcons and the comeback Brady had, but he played really conservative in the fourth quarter and left the door open for Travis Kelce and Mahomes to have a comeback. And then I thought last week, against Dallas, I thought he played really conservative as well with his play calling. Now, it worked out for him because it almost felt like he was just, you know what? We're not going to give this game away. We're going to continue to run the ball. We're going to continue to try to have long drives. Our defense is going to make a play. Eventually, the other team will have a turnover, which was the case. Dak had the turnovers, and they won the game. So I think he's going to have to be a little bit more aggressive because I do believe that the Eagles will be able to score some more points than Dallas. But that's how San Fran wins. They win on their defense, that's the best defense in football, and they run the ball with CMC and Mitchell.
Correct me if I'm wrong. The Commanders' loss was the only one without Hurts, right? Or the only one with Hurts,
yeah,
I should say. The
14
only two
and
losses
1
were without Hurts, right?
Yeah, Hurts is 14-1 this year, and he's won 20 of his last 22 games.
So this is why I don't know where you're leaning, but the line is 2.5 as of today, still on Wednesday. Plenty of time for it to move, although it hasn't moved an inch since it started. No. It's 2.5 at all. Like SI is not trying to catch us this week.
Yeah, Meaney. I was going to ask you, what's SI saying this week?
7, 2.5 across the board, 2.5 cross board holding. The over under is at 46. I'm taking the Eagles to cover solidly. The 46 worries me though. Like, I feel like it might be an under 46 cover.
I'm with you on the under.
Okay.
I actually have a feel to the under, yeah. I feel like just, man, like really two good defenses, and that's it. I think the game will be very similar to last week's San Fran and Dallas. I think, you know, Dallas for Philly, a little bit more pressure they can get off the quarterback. I mean, I think they had like 15 more sacks than any other team. Like, they got 4 guys, double-digit sacks. Like, they can get some pressure.
Well, the reason I look at
the run,
the under,
tight.
Because let's put it this way, and for everybody out there, I don't know, and this isn't this is about to sound like I was talking down to people, but it's not like a good.
You just did say you were going to talk down here.
I know. Well, yeah, this is why I'm talking down the playoffs, is because like when you talk about over-unders, you see the entire total, but like when you kind of phrase it this way, it kind of just gives you, it opens things up. What I'm about to say is, let's say the Eagles score 30 on the 49ers. 49ers still have to score 17 to hit the over. That's
right.
And that's what I was going to say. I think a lot of people will be like 30 to 17. Wow. And then, but it's like that just hit the over by 1 point. And I think that's how I'm looking at it.
It's a good call. I think when you look at totals and you're trying to predict, I mean, you got to come up with the score first in your head. Like, how many points do you think this team can get to in that team? And I mean, it's simple math to talk about it like that way. But yeah, I mean, I got the Eagles covering too. I think it's going to be tight. I see it like a 23-20 game, and that gets us under the under as well. I wouldn't be shocked if it was like a 17-14. I do not see a shootout. I do not see
So here's one of the
ton of points in this game.
This comes from Aaron Reese of The Athletic, so he's breaking this down too. This is DFS purposes, any playoffs that your format you're playing, whether you're betting the over-under, whether you're betting on the 49ers, like whatever it might be, this comes into a lot of things. So the 49ers have targeted in-breaking routes the NFL highest rate past 5 seasons, including this year. The Philadelphia Eagles rank 10th in defensive success and 15th in EPA against that. And no team is allowing fewer yards after the catch than in breaking routes than the Eagles. They're allowing 2 yards after the catch on in breaking routes. It's, again, this sounds like I'm like pulling out one thing, but in breaking routes covers a lot. And the Eagles locked this kind of offense down, and that's what they just faced with the Giants. The Giants are an in-breaking route offense similar to the 49ers, and so again, I think this matchup is a problem.
Yeah, it's a really interesting stat, and it seems to be strength on strength in this matchup. To your point there, I mean, the Niners are a team that leads the NFL in yards after the catch. Right, they got all kinds of yak monsters on their squad. We talked about it for years.
Conversely, the Eagles don't let that happen.
And the Eagles don't let that happen. The Eagles are the best rushing team in football over the past 2 years with the best offensive line. The Niners don't let that happen. I mean, they're strong against the run as well. They got really quick linebackers. Fred Warner is going to be an issue. It is strength on strength. It should be great. But ultimately, like things that we've been saying about for the past couple of weeks, and maybe we've seen like fools saying it is Purdy. It is going to come down to Purdy. In Philly, on the road, different environment, tough defense. He's going to have to make plays. He's going to have to keep up. His defense is going to have create a couple turnovers, and he's going to have to make some plays. And that's really, he has made plays. He's been great. He's going to have to make a couple more.
Good to have this in a decent game for everybody out there. What season is that on anyway? Like 20? I don't even know. Like I feel like they keep bringing it back. And like, all right, so Bengals at Chiefs. This is an interesting one. Line hasn't moved a lot. There was some fluctuation yesterday, being Tuesday, depending on when you're listening to this. But it doesn't seem like Vegas thinks Mahomes is missing the game as of today. And I think all reports are just he's going to play through it. Unless he can do further damage, which doesn't seem to be the report because he wouldn't have came back into that game. Mahomes is playing. The problem is we saw it. And we saw the limited mobility. We saw or heard the Tony Romo report talking about you're going to feel it after the fact. And, I mean, they're going to inject the living crap out of him. They're going to get him going. Yeah. But here's what's interesting about it. This is again from the Aaron Reese piece. This is interesting. So dropping 8 in coverage against Patrick Mahomes. He is 3rd out of 34 qualified quarterbacks against it. He's Patrick flipping Mahomes. The interesting part is that the Bengals, after doing that the first time, they stopped. They only dropped 8 in coverage 4 times against them. And they've been we know, and I'm going to this because we know the story. The Bengals are beating the Chiefs. The Bengals know how to beat the Chiefs. They keep the control of the game, blah, blah, blah. 5-1 against the spread against them. Like they're doing great against the Chiefs. The interesting thing here is why I bring this up is because is this a potential fault point because you drop 8 in coverage with somebody you know has no threat on the ground? Like, do they get away from what's working? Do they say, like, screw it, we're not going to drop it in coverage, we're going to bring the pressure? Or is it the fact that he has no mobility, you just keep bringing the pressure anyway? Because you can look at it both ways. You can kind of make both arguments. Do they start dropping more and say, go ahead and try to beat us with the pass because you can't move? Or do they just get even additional pressure and keep doing what works?
Yeah, I know. This is fascinating. I don't know. Like, Lou Anarumo is he's phenomenal. And what you talked about earlier there, again, from the statistics, I saw it too. And I remember it from last year.
Sorry. One more thing. 11% of his dropbacks were pressured, resulted in sacks. That's one of the lowest of the 34. That's the lowest of the 34 quarterbacks. So I forgot to throw that out there too. So that's part of it. That comes with mobility.
Absolutely. And you know what they did last year, and again, I got some numbers for this too. When they dropped 8+ defenders, Mahomes was 7 for 13, 59 yards and an interception. That was from that playoff game. I mean, they blew that game. They were up I think they were up 18 points in that game. And since he ended up coming back, I feel like the reason they did that was because most teams are trying to figure out how to double. Like, who do you double, Kelsey or Hill? And then they just dropped 8 back, and they were just like, we're just going to bracket both of them. Screw it. We're just going to take both of them away. And that seemed to work. And now, I mean, you don't have the offense is run a little bit differently with no Hill there, but the mobility thing is so huge to your point. Like, how many times have we seen Mahomes extend plays with his legs? So many times he's spinning around and all of a sudden he finds McKinnon, where he finds, like, it doesn't matter who it is. He seems to find somebody. Most times it's actually, for whatever reason, Travis Kelce open in the middle of the field 10 yards after he spins around for 15 seconds.
Go back to, was it week 16? I don't remember the play where he extended to the left and ran to the end zone, and then the defender came up and he chucked it over top of him to McKinnon. And I was like, how do you stop that? And I said, the answer is you don't. And then, of course, armchair quarterback Twitter, if the defender would have stayed in his place and blah, blah, blah. Like, shut the hell up. Yeah, you are not stopping that. Because if he stayed in his place, guess what? You take one extra step forward and you're not stopping Mahomes from getting the end zone. Like,
exactly.
It's so easy. You just got to put 14 guys on McKinnon and 13 on Travis Kelce and then blitz 34% of, like, get the hell out of here.
I know, it's so he's like the only guy to do this too. He's a freak, right? There's no real answer for stopping him when he and
here's
again,
the answer. Here's the answer. Just stop Mahomes, Kelce, and every other weapon, and then you stop the Chiefs. There you go. Congratulations.
I think they've stopped him 3 times, right? So we can say that, but I think when we saw Mahomes come back in the game, all of the throws were from the pocket. He wasn't moving at all. I don't think he's going to be able to move. So I would say
Bengals over 1.5.
I am. Yeah, I am doing it. I feel like a sucker. I was probably going to do it anyways. On Sunday night, I jumped on Cincy plus 1.5. It has moved a little bit since he's now favored. I think we saw last night some people
-1.5.
Yeah, I think there were some 2.5s yesterday. Some people told me that on Mean Streets, and I think maybe people last night were just maybe buying back into Cincy as like potential dogs here. But listen, Cincy's beat them 3 times, right? That's a thing, but they've also beat them in different ways in all 3 times. They beat them with Jamar Chase having a big game. They beat them with their defense, and they beat them coming back in a game from behind. And they've done it twice in Arrowhead. So it's not like this is a new feeling for Burrow and company. They were just there last year at this point. They've learned a thing or two from those games.
Weather yet?
I got to give, I don't know. And that's another thing. How about Burrow going into Buffalo and beating the Bills in their type of game, in that environment, with that weather? And Joe Burrow had no issue in that game at all, moving up and down the field. They got more weapons. I wonder if
you know what his forecast is as of right now for Sunday?
I don't know.
Mid-20s with wind chill at 5.
Yeah, chilly. And there's a massive storm coming up. Too, right?
I can tell you exactly what's not going to feel good in a wind chill of 5, and that's any kind of injury. I can tell you that much.
Man, he's in a tough spot. I really do feel like he's in a tough. He's Mahomes, and he can do it. We can all say, we could list off a dozen quarterbacks in the league that he's better than with one ankle. But ultimately, like, his mobility is huge. It's a huge factor. They don't run the ball a lot. They did last week. Do you think they lean on Pacheco and they try to establish a run here? Like, I don't know.
I'm surprised they got so far away from McKinnon, but it came down to the pass blocking conversations that they were saying. I think
it's going to be the McKinnon game this week.
Yeah, the game got a little, and then the offensive line and the weather and all blah, 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 blah. Like, so all that kind of stuff. So, you know me. I had Bengals over your Eagles to start. I'm not coming off that. At 1.5, that doesn't really scare me. The 47, that weather worries me about the 47, honestly. Like, that.
Kind of have a lean to the under, too.
Yeah, because if you're going to get a little bit of wind, it's not insane wind, but as of today, I mean, we're a half a week out still. But as of today, you're talking 20s with winds 10 to 15, potentially 20 in single digit. I lean towards the under. We cover that a lot. So
just one more thing here. One more thing, Jake. Sorry to jump in. One more thing about the defense. I just want to say this. The defense doesn't get enough credit actually in Cincinnati. Like, we gave them some credit here on what they did last year to Mahomes and dropping back 8 and kind of like confusing Mahomes, and definitely saw that in the second half. A 58.9% completion rate against opposing quarterbacks. That's the best mark in the league. this defense is actually pretty good. That's all I want to say.
So,
It's pretty underrated.
Here's my question: is it your one and dones? If you're still going around here, is your one and dones? Is it Purdy and Mahomes? Like, do you
No,
I've
actually had this strategy where I went. I think I've screwed myself actually, but I started my quarterbacks. I started Allen, and then I went Burrow, and then my plan was to go Mahomes and KC in this game. I still have T. Higgins left as well. Last week I used Diggs and Burrow and Chase, so I'm gonna mostly stack KC, and that is not a great feeling because considering how Mahomes is hurt. And then my plan was just whoever made it out of the NFC would just be a full-on, basically, NFC stack. And I'd be comfortable with that. Like Philly, full-on San Fran, and, maybe a one or two pieces from whoever gets into the Super Bowl. But I actually feel like I'm in a tough spot now because I got to play Mahomes because I can't play Purdy or Hurts because I may not have a quarterback in the Super Bowl. So I have to play Mahomes. I have to play Kelsey. I got to play Juju, T. Higgins, and I just hope that there's some points. But I feel like there's a chance for more points in the Cincy game than there is in the Philly and San Fran. So I don't know. I think I screwed myself.
You put yourself in a bad spot.
Yeah. But at least I'm going to have guys in the Super Bowl. That I know because I haven't really attacked the NFC side. But I've missed out on. I may miss out on CMC and good players.
Let's talk about, before we get out of here, putting ourselves in a good spot.
Yes, let's do that.
As we wrap up things we were right about for 2022. I mean, a lot we're going to miss, but like for reasons why. I asked you rookies or veteran wide receivers and veterans, and that's what we went with. So now let's talk rookies. We have three specific rookies. I kind of two, I was going to say, but Garrett Wilson and Drake, and then throw in George Pickens. We were right about George Pickens, but kind of a different reason. George Pickens, we took talent over Claypool. Wilson and Drake we were taking because of volume and opportunity. Like, at worst case, they were going to be the number two. We assumed Drake London was going to be the number two to Kyle Pitts. Something that went wrong. But Garrett Wilson, is it kind of fool's errand to do this carte blanche? Like, just 100, I don't even know if I'm using that term right. But anyway, like 100% just across the board, just be like, if a rookie wide receiver with a draft 1 or possibly round 2 capital comes in and we project them as the number 2, done. Top 30, 35 at worst. Is it dangerous to do that? Because occasionally it goes wrong, but it seems it hits more often than not.
Yeah, I think there is a fine line. Yeah, it could be a little dangerous, but you're right. I mean, we've seen a lot of these rookie wide receivers over the past couple of years really pay off and even be better than their ADP, like leading up to the NFL season. Right? I mean, Garrett Wilson was an absolute steal in drafts. Elijah Moore was going way ahead of him. And we knew he was going to be the number 2. I feel like we all thought at least he was going to be the number 2 and looking at that Jet squad. And there were times where he was even dropped, wasn't he, in fantasy? Like, I think after 3 or 4 weeks, like there was some good moments early.
After Flacco, and then it was Zach Wilson for a little while.
And then it was like some dud moments. And then it seemed to be over. And I know following like Yahoo and ESPN leagues, and I know everybody's leagues are different. High stakes, he was never dropped, but he was available and he popped off. I think, to your point, yeah, if you are a rookie wide receiver, you're landing into a spot where you are for sure the number 2, and there's not like a massive alpha on the other side, because Michael Thomas was a question mark, and Elijah Moore was just, I don't know, people seem to really, really like him just because of moments from the year before. Like, those guys were number 2s. Pickett was a number 2. Those guys were number 2s on their squad. London was a number 1. It took some time, but at the end of the day, I believe you were right.
I never had him in. I was doing the hold, like, just don't. And Jiggles called that out. I remember, because I know you're right, because there was a point in the season in the waiver article where somebody was like, "Where would Garrett Wilson rank?" And I was like, "What are you talking about?" He's like 56%. Like, what? Like, when did this? What are people doing? Like, I was baffled by that. All right, to get out of here on this, tight ends. We were really good nailing Cole Kmet and David Njoku. Similar question, possibly similar answer. Is this just possibly the best way to attack tight ends if you don't get one of the big 4, 5, 6, whatever it might be any given year? Is the very simple answer, find somebody who could be the number 2 option on the team. Just somebody with a roster that, like, I'll give you an example, potentially for next year, Daniel Bellinger for the Giants might be the number 2 option because they got nothing else. Like, if Mike Evans retired tomorrow, Chris Godwin, Cade Otton, number 2.
Yeah.
If Zach Ertz retires, Trey McBride, the number 2. Like, is it very simple to just like try to find the next number 2 option for the team?
I think so. Yeah. If you don't get those first few, right? If you don't, those guys come off the board. I would say what you're looking for at the tight end position is hopefully like a pass heavy offense, and just like not only a number 2, but also a guy that's maybe just gonna be targeted inside the red zone. So Cole Kmet, I guess, was that guy after back-to-back zeros to start the season, right? And this is another guy that was dropped all over. That was got
dropped.
But Fields started to get onto a bit of a groove, and to your point, he was definitely the number 2, and I think most times he was actually the number 1. You know, Mooney was very inconsistent with some of his targets and volume, so
they got hurt.
Yeah, I think so.
All right.
I mean, and also patience. I think we should preach patience too in future shows, because sometimes it takes a little bit for some of these rookies.
Did it forever. People don't listen.
They really don't. Patience is so key, and it's tougher. I think in fantasy, it's all about like what have you done for me lately, and then you just get so many tough matchups that guys don't excel in those tough matchups. Talking to my aunt, quick story. Talking to my aunt last night, big Seahawks fan. She came down. She's like talking about her fantasy team. She's showing me her fantasy team, and she's talking about good players, like I don't know, DK Metcalf or Tyler Lockett. It's like, what the heck? Like this guy goes for 30 points and then gets 4 the next week. I want to drop him. You'd be surprised the people that think like that, and it's just matchups. You got to be patient, and you get tough spots. And you get
I showed you the text message from my buddy.
So, yeah.
What are the lock bets I can make this week?
Not a thing. Not a thing. That's why Vegas builds big buildings.
Well, that's why they're minus 400, and you got to put a lot of money to bet it. Why is that? Like, because there's no such thing as a lock bet.
Right. Not a thing at all.
Yeah, but that's what we're here for. We're trying to help everybody from the novice to the experienced to tell us we're stupid if we don't agree with them. So hopefully you agree with everything we said today and agree with. Follow Chris Meaney at Chris Meaney. See how I did that? Code ALLIN, 20% off at FTN. Everything over there, hockey fun that you can have, and enjoy the games this weekend. We'll be back next Tuesday. Goodbye.
Rookie of the month.